Welcome back to the Timeless Sparks channel. Today, we're embarking on a journey through one of the defining periods in American history, the American Civil War. Whether you're a history buff or just curious about the transformative events that shaped our nation, this video will break down the causes, key moments, and enduring effects of this pivotal conflict. So grab your notebook or a cup of coffee, and let's dive into the past. To fully understand the Civil War, we have to rewind to the years leading up to 1861. This wasn't just a war, it was the culmination of decades of tension between the North and South, rooted in deep ideological, economic, and political differences. Let's start with slavery, the most polarizing issue of the time. The Southern economy thrived on agriculture, particularly cotton, which depended heavily on enslaved labor. Meanwhile, the North, embracing industrialization, had largely abolished slavery and was moving toward a free labor system. This fundamental difference set the stage for years of bitter debates over morality, economics, and human rights. Next, we have the question of state rights versus federal authority. Southern states believed they should govern themselves, including deciding whether they wanted slavery within their borders. To them, this wasn't just about slavery, it was about autonomy. On the other hand, the North advocated for a stronger federal government, believing that national unity and economic progress depended on centralized policies. And then there were the economic differences. The North's industrial boom led to the rise of factories, railroads, and urban centers, and along with it, calls for protective tariffs that benefited industry. Meanwhile, the South's agricultural economy revolved around exporting goods like cotton, leading to conflicts over trade policies that seemed skewed in favor of Northern interests. Finally, the election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860 served as the spark that ignited the powder keg. While Lincoln wasn't calling for the immediate abolition of slavery, his opposition to the expansion of slavery into new territories alarmed the South. Believing their way of life was under threat, several states seceded from the Union following his victory, forming the Confederate States of America, a direct challenge to the authority of the federal government. And just like that, tensions erupted into war in April 1861 with the Confederate attack on Fort Sumter in South Carolina. The Civil War had begun. Now let's explore the key events that shaped this devastating conflict. One of the earliest and most significant moments was the Battle of Fort Sumter. This was where the first shots were fired, marking the official start of the war. Though there were no casualties in this opening exchange, it sent shockwaves through the United States and signaled that a peaceful resolution might no longer be possible. Fast forward to July 1863 and the Battle of Gettysburg, a turning point in the war. Over 3 grueling days, Union forces managed to halt General Robert E. Lee's second invasion of the North. Gettysburg was not only one of the bloodiest battles, with over 50,000 casualties, but it also shattered the Confederate momentum and tipped the scales in favor of the Union. During that same year, we witnessed President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, issued on January 1, 1863. This groundbreaking declaration freed all enslaved people in Confederate territories, transforming the war from a fight to preserve the Union into a moral crusade against slavery itself. Though it didn't end slavery immediately, it paved the way for its abolition and ensured that the war's legacy would be intertwined with the fight for human rights. Finally, in April 1865, the war came to an end with the Confederacy's surrender at Appomattox Courthouse. General Robert E. Lee's concession to General Ulysses S. Grant marked the collapse of the Confederate rebellion and the preservation of the Union. After 4 brutal years, the deadliest conflict in American history was finally over. The deadliest conflict in American history was finally over. Yet the effects of the Civil War would ripple through American society for generations. The abolition of slavery was one of its defining legacies. The passage of the 13th Amendment in 1865 officially ended the institution, but the fight for equality was far from over. Newly freed individuals faced systemic racism and widespread disenfranchisement, setting the stage for decades of civil rights struggles. Then came Reconstruction, a period of rebuilding and reintegration that brought Southern states back into the Union and granted civil rights to freed slaves. But Reconstruction was fraught with challenges: Southern resistance, political backlash, and the rise of discriminatory practices like Jim Crow laws created a new battleground for racial justice. Politically, the Civil War represented a major shift in the balance of power. It solidified the federal government's authority over the states, proving that the Union could and would enforce national unity, even in the face of rebellion. And economically, the war transformed the United States in profound ways. The Southern economy was shattered, having lost its reliance on enslaved labor and seeing much of its infrastructure destroyed. Meanwhile, the North surged ahead, spurred by industrial advancements and the rise of technologies like railroads and the telegraph. The American Civil War was, without question, one of the most brutal yet transformative events in U.S. history. Whether it's the deep divisions that led to war, the battles that defined it, or the struggles that followed, the echoes of this conflict continue to shape the nation's identity. It was a war that preserved the Union but also forced America to confront its darkest truths and begin the long, unfinished journey toward equality. Thank you for watching this episode of Timeless Sparks. If you enjoyed diving into the complex history of the Civil War with us, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more fascinating explorations of the past. And as always, drop us a comment below with your thoughts, or let us know what historical topics you'd like us to cover next. Until next time, keep learning and keep sparking curiosity.